Imagine a cold, damp room in a Victorian workhouse where the air is thick with the smell of thin gruel and the desperate breath of 30 starving boys. One boy, smaller and paler than the rest, rises from the table with his copper bowl clutched in trembling hands. He walks toward the master, a fat, healthy man in a white apron, and utters the 5 words that would scandalize the British Empire. "Please, sir, I want some more." This isn't just a scene from a children's book. It is the opening salvo of Charles Dickens' masterpiece, Oliver Twist. This story is a brutal, visceral journey through the underbelly of 19th century London, a place where poverty was treated as a crime and the only thing cheaper than a life was a soul. Dickens doesn't just tell us about the poor. He drags us into the mud with them, showing us a world of pickpockets, murderers, and the cold, unfeeling machinery of the state. The story begins in the bleakest way possible. Oliver is born in a workhouse, his mother dying minutes after his birth, without anyone knowing her name. The parish authorities, led by the pompous and terrifying Mr. Bumble, treat Oliver like a nuisance, a piece of property to be managed as cheaply as possible. Dickens spends a lot of time detailing the parochial system, and it is horrifying. Oliver is farmed out to a woman who pockets the money meant for his food, leaving him to survive on the thin crusts of life. By the time he is 9, he is a pale, thin child, somewhat diminutive in stature, but with a spirit that hasn't been entirely crushed. That famous moment where he asks for more food isn't an act of rebellion, it's an act of pure, physical desperation. The result? He is immediately branded a rebel, offered for £5 to anyone who will take him as an apprentice, and eventually sold to an undertaker named Mr. Sowerberry. Living among coffins is an upgrade from the workhouse, but not by much. Oliver sleeps under the counter in the funeral parlor, surrounded by the smell of elm and sawdust. It's here we see the first spark of real fire in him. When a cowardly bully named Noah Claypole insults Oliver's dead mother, calling her a regular right-down bad un, Oliver doesn't just cry. He snaps. He flies at Noah with a terrific howl and pummels him. This is the moment Oliver decides he cannot stay. He runs away, walking 70 miles toward the only place a lost soul can disappear, London. As Oliver enters the city through Barnet, he is a dirt-covered, wretched-looking object. This is where he meets Jack Dawkins, better known as the Artful Dodger. Imagine a boy who acts like a 50-year-old man, wearing a man's coat with the sleeves tucked up and a hat perched precariously on his head. He's got the airs and manners of a man and a swagger that promises a world of excitement. He offers Oliver food and a place to sleep, leading him into the heart of the London slums, a labyrinth of filth, narrow alleys, and the heavy, oppressive fog of the Thames. Then we meet Fagin. He is one of the most vivid, controversial, and terrifying characters in literature. When Oliver first sees him, Fagin is standing over a fire, frying sausages with a toasted fork in his hand. He is a very old, shriveled Jew, with a villainous and repulsive face, matted red hair, and a greasy flannel gown. He looks like a creature out of a nightmare. Yet, he is the first person to offer Oliver a semblance of a home. But the price of this home is high. Fagin runs a school for thieves, teaching boys how to play a game where they try to lift a snuff box or a pocket handkerchief from his pockets without him noticing. Oliver, in his heartbreaking innocence, thinks it's just a funny game. He doesn't realize he's being groomed for a life of crime until he sees the Dodger and Charlie Bates actually lift a silk handkerchief from a gentleman at a bookstall. The gentleman, Mr. Brownlow, becomes the catalyst for the rest of the story. When Oliver is wrongly accused of the theft and later cleared. Brownlow takes him in. For the first time, Oliver sees a world of books, clean linen, and kindness. But the criminal underworld isn't finished with him. Fagin and his terrifying associate, Bill Sikes, cannot afford to let Oliver peach or talk to the authorities. Bill Sikes is the raw muscle of the operation, a man with a broad, heavy countenance and a dog, Bullseye, who is just as vicious as he is. Sikes is pure, unadulterated menace. When he speaks, you can almost hear the gravel in his throat and the threat of violence in every syllable. To get Oliver back, they use Nancy. Nancy is perhaps the most complex character in the book. She's a wretched creature who has been a thief since she was a child, bound to Sikes by a twisted kind of love or fear. She kidnaps Oliver in broad daylight, dragging him back to Fagin's den. The psychological weight of this part of the book is heavy. Oliver has tasted a better life, and now he is trapped back in the darkness. Fagin tries to poison his mind by making him read books about famous criminals, hoping to break his spirit so he will become a useful tool. The tension peaks during the attempted robbery at Chertsey. Sikes needs a small boy to climb through a tiny window, and Oliver is the chosen victim. The atmosphere Dickens creates during this nighttime heist is incredible. The deep, dark, silent water of the river, the thick steam of the night, and the clanking of the iron as they move through the shadows. Oliver is shot during the botched burglary and left in a ditch by Sikes. It's a moment of absolute despair. However, the residents of the house he tried to rob, Mrs. Maylie and the beautiful Rose, take pity on him. This starts the final tug-of-war for Oliver's soul. The shadows deepen as Monks enters the fray. Monks is a dark, brooding figure with a fitful and nervous temperament who has a mysterious hatred for Oliver. We eventually learn that Oliver isn't just a random orphan. There is a conspiracy involving a lost will and a hidden heritage. Nancy, moved by a shred of conscience and her affection for Oliver, risks her life to meet Rose Maylie on London Bridge to reveal the truth. This scene is haunting. The cold, damp, and gloomy bridge at midnight. The heavy bell of St. Paul's tolling in the distance. Nancy knows she is signing her death warrant, but she does it anyway. The fallout is the most violent sequence Dickens ever wrote. When Sikes finds out Nancy talked, he loses his mind. The murder of Nancy is visceral. He strikes her down with a club, ignoring her pleas for mercy as she holds up a white handkerchief in prayer. The aftermath is even more chilling. Sikes wanders the countryside, haunted by the widely staring eyes of the woman he killed. Dickens describes Sikes's guilt as a physical presence, a ghastly figure that follows him through every shadow and every crowd. The climax on the rooftops of Jacob's Island, a squalid slum surrounded by a foul and stagnant ditch, is a masterclass in pacing. Sikes tries to escape over the roofs, the mob howling below like wolves, only to accidentally hang himself in his panic. Looking at the book as a whole, what Dickens gets so right is the atmosphere. He doesn't just describe London. He makes you feel the dirt, the damp, and the stench. The characters are caricatures, yes, but they are so sharply drawn that they burn into your memory. The Artful Dodger is a delight. Fagin is a looming shadow of manipulation, and Sikes is pure terror. However, the book does stumble in its middle sections. The coincidence-heavy plot regarding Oliver's true identity feels a bit like a Victorian soap opera. The good characters, like Rose Maylie and Mr. Brownlow, can sometimes feel a bit flat and too perfect compared to the vibrant, messy villains. Also, the pacing slows down significantly whenever Oliver is in the countryside, as Dickens seems much more comfortable in the chaotic energy of the city. The verdict? Oliver Twist is essential reading, but not because it's a classic. You should read it because it is a gritty, fast-paced thriller that happens to be 200 years old. It's a story about how society treats its most vulnerable and how the human spirit can survive even the most crushing circumstances. If you love stories with high stakes, atmospheric settings, and villains that actually feel dangerous, this is for you. It's much darker than the musical versions suggest, and that's where its real power lies.
If you enjoyed this deep dive into the foggy streets of Victorian London, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe for more journeys through the greatest stories ever told. Leave a comment below and let me know which classic book we should tackle next. Thanks for watching.